Imagine you're a young American soldier crouched in a foxhole somewhere in Normandy, June 1944. The morning mist is just beginning to lift when suddenly the air is torn apart by a sound unlike anything you've ever heard before. It's not the steady chatter of a typical machine gun, but something far more terrifying, a bone-chilling buzz-saw that seems to rip through the very fabric of reality at 200 rounds per minute. This is the sound that earned a nickname whispered in fear across every Allied foxhole, Hitler's Buzzsaw. The weapon creating this nightmare symphony was the MG-42, and its distinctive sound alone was enough to freeze entire battalions in their tracks. But this wasn't just psychological warfare. This German machine gun was so revolutionary, so devastatingly effective, that it would influence military weapon design for the next 80 years, and counting. Today, we're diving deep into the secrets behind the weapon that didn't just change how wars were fought, but how soldiers experienced the very terror of combat itself. To understand why the MG-42 became such a game-changer, we need to step back to the aftermath of World War I, when German military engineers were grappling with the harsh lessons learned from 4 years of devastating trench warfare. The Treaty of Versailles had severely restricted Germany's ability to develop military weapons, but by the 1930s, as tensions began rising across Europe, German engineers were secretly working to create weapons that would give them a decisive advantage in any future conflict. The existing machine guns of the era, including Germany's own MG-34, were effective but had significant limitations. They were heavy, complex to manufacture, required extensive machining, and most critically, they couldn't sustain the kind of rapid, overwhelming fire that modern warfare demanded. German tacticians had developed a military doctrine that emphasized rapid movement and concentrated firepower, what would later become known as blitzkrieg, but they needed weapons that could support this revolutionary approach to warfare. The machine gun was identified as a critical component of this new military philosophy, but it needed to be completely reimagined from the ground up. The weapon they envisioned would need to be lighter than existing designs, faster to produce, more reliable in harsh conditions, and capable of delivering such overwhelming firepower that it could single-handedly control entire sections of a battlefield. The development of what would become the MG-42 began in earnest in 1937 at the Grossfuss Company under the brilliant leadership of Dr. Werner Gruner. Gruner and his team faced a seemingly impossible challenge: create a machine gun that was simultaneously more powerful and less expensive to produce than anything that had come before. Their solution was revolutionary in its simplicity and devastating in its effectiveness. Instead of relying on the traditional machined components that made weapons expensive and time-consuming to produce, they pioneered the use of stamped metal parts and innovative manufacturing techniques that could dramatically reduce production time and cost. But the real breakthrough came in the weapon's operating mechanism. While most machine guns of the era used complex recoil or gas-operated systems, the MG-42 employed a revolutionary roller-delayed blowback system that was not only simpler and more reliable, but also capable of achieving a cyclic rate of fire that was simply unprecedented. The first prototypes, tested in 1940, immediately demonstrated capabilities that exceeded every expectation. The weapon could fire at rates approaching 2,500 rounds per minute under optimal conditions, while maintaining accuracy and reliability that surpassed existing designs. Even more importantly, the new manufacturing processes meant that a single MG-42 could be produced in the same time it took to manufacture 3 MG-34s, using less skilled labor and fewer critical materials. When the MG-42 first appeared on the battlefield in 1942, Allied forces were completely unprepared for what they encountered. The weapon's extraordinary rate of fire created tactical challenges that existing military doctrine simply couldn't address. A single MG-42 position could lay down such a devastating field of fire that entire companies of advancing troops would be pinned down, unable to move forward or retreat. But it wasn't just the volume of fire that made the MG-42 so effective. It was the psychological impact of its distinctive sound. The weapon's incredibly high cyclic rate created a unique acoustic signature that was unlike anything soldiers had experienced before. Instead of the familiar chug, chug, chug of conventional machine guns, the MG-42 produced a continuous, tearing sound that resembled a massive piece of fabric being ripped apart at incredible speed. Allied soldiers quickly dubbed it Hitler's Buzzsaw, the Ripper, and Spandau, names that reflected both fear and grudging respect for the weapon's capabilities. Veterans who survived encounters with the MG-42 consistently reported that the sound alone was enough to induce panic in inexperienced troops, and even seasoned soldiers found the weapon's distinctive buzz psychologically unnerving. The sound carried for miles, serving as an audible warning that a position was defended by one of the most feared weapons in the German arsenal. The tactical impact of the MG-42 extended far beyond its psychological effects. German military doctrine was completely restructured around the weapon's capabilities, creating what became known as the MG-42 Squad, a tactical unit built entirely around supporting and maximizing the effectiveness of a single machine gun. Unlike Allied forces, which typically used machine guns as supporting weapons, German squads were organized with the MG-42 as the primary weapon, with riflemen serving essentially as ammunition carriers and protectors for the machine gun crew. This approach proved devastatingly effective in defensive operations, where a well-positioned MG-42 could control vast areas of terrain and channel attacking forces into predetermined kill zones. The weapon's quick-change barrel system allowed sustained fire for extended periods, something that was impossible with most contemporary machine guns that would overheat and jam during prolonged engagements. A trained crew could change the barrel in under 6 seconds, meaning the weapon could maintain continuous fire almost indefinitely as long as ammunition and spare barrels were available. This capability transformed defensive tactics, allowing small German units to hold positions against much larger attacking forces through sheer firepower superiority. The MG-42's effectiveness was perhaps most dramatically demonstrated during the D-Day landings at Normandy, where German positions equipped with these weapons inflicted horrific casualties on Allied forces. At Omaha Beach, MG-42 positions commanded overlapping fields of fire that turned the landing into a nightmare for American troops. The weapon's ability to traverse quickly and lay down accurate fire at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters meant that Allied soldiers were under deadly fire from the moment they left their landing craft until they could reach whatever cover was available. After-action reports from Normandy consistently identified MG-42 positions as the primary tactical obstacle faced by advancing Allied forces. The weapon was so effective that Allied commanders developed specific tactics designed solely to neutralize MG-42 positions, including the use of specialized assault teams, concentrated artillery barrages, and even experimental weapons designed specifically to counter the German machine guns' advantages. Despite these efforts, MG-42 positions continued to exact a terrible toll on Allied forces throughout the European campaign, with many veterans later stating that the distinctive sound of the weapon remained one of their most vivid and terrifying memories of the war. Beyond its immediate battlefield impact, the MG-42 represented a fundamental shift in military manufacturing and design philosophy that would influence weapon development for decades to come. The innovative production techniques pioneered during its development demonstrated that complex weapons could be mass-produced using simplified manufacturing processes, stamped components, and less skilled labor without sacrificing performance or reliability. This approach would become the standard for military weapon production throughout the Cold War era and beyond. The weapon's modular design, with easily replaceable components and simplified maintenance procedures, established principles that are still followed in modern military weapon systems. Even more significantly, the MG-42's operating mechanism became the foundation for an entire family of weapons that would dominate the post-war era. The roller-delayed blowback system pioneered in the MG-42 was later adapted for use in submachine guns, assault rifles, and sniper rifles, creating a technological lineage that extends directly to weapons still in use today by military and law enforcement agencies around the world. The post-war legacy of the MG-42 is perhaps even more remarkable than its wartime service. Despite being developed by Nazi Germany, the weapon's superior design was so impressive that it was adopted and adapted by numerous countries after the war ended. The most direct descendant was the MG3, which entered service with the West German Bundeswehr in the 1950s and remains in use today by military forces around the world. The MG3 is essentially an updated MG-42, modified to use NATO standard ammunition, but retaining the same basic operating system and many of the same components as its wartime predecessor. This means that a weapon designed in the late 1930s is still serving on the front lines of modern conflicts, a testament to the revolutionary nature of its original design. The influence of the MG-42 extended beyond direct copies and modifications. The weapon's design philosophy, emphasizing high rates of fire, reliability, ease of production, and battlefield effectiveness over precision manufacturing, became the template for machine gun development throughout the Cold War. Soviet weapons designers studied captured MG-42s extensively, incorporating many of its innovations into their own designs. American and British engineers likewise analyzed the weapon's capabilities and manufacturing techniques, leading to improvements in their own military production processes. The sound that once froze battlefields across Europe, Africa, and the Pacific has become one of the most recognizable audio signatures in military history. Even today, more than 80 years after its first deployment, the distinctive buzz of an MG-42 is instantly recognizable to military historians, veterans, and anyone who has studied the weapons of World War II. That sound represents more than just a machine gun firing. It represents a revolution in military technology that changed how wars are fought and how weapons are designed. The MG-42 proved that innovation in warfare comes not just from making weapons more powerful, but from making them more efficient, more reliable, and more psychologically effective. It demonstrated that the sound of a weapon can be as important as its ballistic performance, and that manufacturing innovation can be just as decisive as tactical innovation. The lessons learned from the MG-42's development and deployment continue to influence military thinking today, from the design of modern machine guns to the psychological aspects of warfare and the importance of manufacturing efficiency in military procurement. The story of the MG-42 reminds us that in warfare, as in many aspects of human endeavor, revolutionary changes often come from rethinking fundamental assumptions rather than simply improving existing designs. The German engineers who created this weapon didn't just build a better machine gun, they reimagined what a machine gun could be and how it could be made. Their innovation created a weapon that was simultaneously more effective and less expensive than anything that had come before, proving that superior engineering could overcome material disadvantages and industrial limitations. The psychological impact of the weapon, that terrifying buzz that gave it so many fearsome nicknames, demonstrates how the human element remains crucial even in an age of increasingly sophisticated military technology. The MG-42 succeeded not just because it could fire faster or more accurately than other weapons, but because it could break the will of enemy soldiers through the sheer terror of its distinctive sound. If you found this deep dive into one of history's most influential weapons as fascinating as we did, make sure to hit that like button and let us know in the comments which aspect of the MG-42 story surprised you most. Was it the revolutionary manufacturing techniques, the psychological impact of its sound, or its continued influence on modern weapons? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories from military history that reveal the secrets behind the weapons and technologies that shaped our world. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode, because we're constantly uncovering the hidden stories behind the innovations that changed the course of history forever.